Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the THICCDAD Podcast. I'm Tyler Champagne, your host, and I am currently more congested than the Highway 400 heading north on a long weekend. Now, that's an incredibly geographically specific joke that about 11 people who live near Barrie, Ontario are going to understand, but that's just to say that I'm completely congested right now, and I have no idea why, okay? There's been no change in the weather. It's not allergy season. It's not cold or flu season yet. What is happening to me? I have no idea. I'm currently recording this while both my kids are asleep for now, but we will see what the devil has in store for us this evening, because that's what happens when you have two or more children. The devil controls their sleep schedule because they never sleep at the same time for whatever reason, and that's just a torture tactic that the universe takes out on parents of two or more children. So thank you for tuning in. I want to give a huge thank you to everyone who listened to the first episode, everyone who downloaded it, watched it, listened to it. I got a lot of great feedback, hundreds and hundreds of downloads, which I really, really appreciate. It's awesome to see that there's interest in this kind of content from me, because usually I'm just making an absolute fool of myself wearing a dumb hat or a bucket on my head or doing my hair a weird way. But thank you so much for all the downloads, the comments, the messages, and the ratings. I appreciate that as well. So if you do listen to this episode and you like the show, give it a 5-star rating, give it a review, and leave a comment on YouTube if that's where you watch it, if you have eyes that function. But welcome back to the second episode. We have a lot to get into today. I went on a solo parenting trip recently. My wife went on a well-deserved trip to Las Vegas, the city of nightmares, I believe it's called. She was on a bachelorette trip with some friends and a well-deserved girls trip that I was happy to have her go on. Outwardly, I was very happy. Inwardly, I was extremely nervous because my daughter, who is 5 months old, is basically exclusively breastfed, and up until the point where my wife left, had maybe 3.5 bottles in her entire life of breast milk. So that was a challenge, and unfortunately I had to keep telling my daughter, Mommy's tits are in Vegas, and she didn't understand that, of course, but I thought it was quite funny, and we managed to get through it. How, I'm not really sure. We prepped for it, right? Leading up a couple weeks before, 2 weeks before my wife left, I had basically never fed my daughter a bottle, and I had basically never put her down for a nap or to bed. So I started training like I was some sort of last-minute Olympian, and we got it done. It got to the point, it started off really rough. So if you're a dad who is feeling maybe disconnected from your newborn or your baby, just keep pushing through. That's my advice, because it was to the point where when I first started, like, okay, I have to do this. We don't have a choice. In 2 weeks, Mommy and her tits are going to Vegas for 5 days, so we don't have a choice. We have to figure out a way to make this work. I was, the first couple of times, 25 minutes into trying to put my daughter down, where she was screaming because she's so used to my wife, the comfort of a warm tit, which we all love, of course, but it was just me and my useless nipples, and I just couldn't put her down. 25 minutes in, my wife would be like, look, you got to tap out. I can do this, because, of course, she has this incredible deep connection with our daughter, and she's like, I can do it. She let me go as long as she possibly could, and then it was time for me to tap out. And I'll be honest, there was one night where I slammed my fist on the banister of my stairs going downstairs because I was so frustrated. I felt like a terrible parent. I felt like a failure as a parent. And my wife heard, of course, and after she got my daughter down in 3 seconds, after me struggling for almost a half hour, she goes, did you punch a wall? And I was like, no. I hit the banister like an adult who's mature. And my banister, I don't know what it's made out of, but concrete maybe. If I hit it any harder, all of my bones in my right hand would have turned to dust, which thankfully they did not. So I pushed through, and every day got a little bit better. And I'm an incredibly competitive person for whatever reason. I'm not good at anything, so it doesn't make any sense why I'm so competitive. But I was timing myself on my phone of how long it took me to get my daughter down so that I could try to beat that score the next day. And then it was 9 minutes one day, and then it was 7.5, and then 6, and then 5. And eventually I was able to get her down fairly quickly, fairly easily, and she got used to me a little bit, which was fantastic, and it ended up working out. I had the dream, okay? A 5-hour drive to Michigan. My darling stepmother and siblings, who are kind of darlings by comparison, they decided to take my kids earlier in the day. And I worked about half a day, and then I drove down myself. Whoa, that was my vacation. I got 5.5 hours of uninterrupted driving. I got to eat fast food in the car, which is one of my favorite things to do. I don't know what that says about my mental state. Probably nothing good. I got to eat a bunch of junk food. I didn't have to hand like a blown on fry back to a toddler. I didn't have to hear, "Oh, Daddy, I want apple juice," after he specifically asked for milk at the window. None of that. So that was my vacation. So the second I got to my uncle's cottage in Michigan was actually when my vacation ended. But let me just say, first of all, Michigan highways, who's running that state? Okay? You drive a mile on a Michigan highway, you'll find enough car parts to be able to build an entire car from scratch. There's whole bumpers, the entire carcass of a car, wheels everywhere. Sometimes you'll see an entire car. Is it $1 million US to tow a car in Michigan? It has to be, because there's cars just abandoned everywhere on the highway. And also, don't like to bring this up because it's not really a nice image, but there's dead deer everywhere on Michigan highways. Is there no roadkill cleanup crew? Bunch of Dexter-looking fellas or gals in white suits that take the carcasses of deer off the road? It's insane. The shoulders on Michigan highways look like someone was skeet shooting under Santa's flight path. There's just deer everywhere. Anyways, is there anything worse than traffic on a road trip? Okay, traffic on a commute, I can totally handle. I'm prepared for that mentally sometimes. I know that it's coming and I go, okay, I budgeted for this extra amount of time. That's okay. Traffic on a road trip could be the most frustrating thing that you deal with on a road trip. You just see that like 5.5 hour ETA just creeping up every minute that you're not moving at highway speed. It's insane. Traffic on a road trip turns you into the worst version of yourself. I'm convinced. I got stuck in maybe a 21-minute traffic jam because there was a massive car fire on the other way. Probably a horrifically bad, life-changing moment, excuse me, for the people involved in that accident. And I was like, oh, come on, but 11 minutes more. Like, it just turns you into the worst version of yourself. Thankfully, I didn't have very many more delays once we got going. But solo parenting, okay? Solo parenting is hard. At home, solo parenting on vacation is like doing a Rubik's Cube with oven mitts and a blindfold on. It's so difficult because you have no routine. You're in an unfamiliar place that's potentially... Excuse me, what is happening right now? I'm not cutting any of this out, by the way. Mostly because I don't know how. But you're parenting on vacation. You're parenting in an unfamiliar place. You have nothing prepared. And everything is sharp. Why is everything so sharp? At home, I have little nice rubber things on sharp corners. I have little things that cover the outlets in the wall so my son doesn't electrocute himself. Look like he got struck by lightning. On vacation, you're like, oh, this table's made of swords. Interesting. And you're always near a dangerous body of water. Even if you're not, you are. This was right on a lake, so of course, you can't let a toddler out of your sight for a single second when there's a body of water nearby. But solo parenting is extremely tough, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for any single parent or people who do solo parenting often. If you have a spouse that works out of town, out of country, if your spouse is in the military, anyone who does solo parenting for an extended period of time is just, I can't even believe how difficult it is. So kudos to anyone who does that because it's so hard. It's so effing hard. My God. I ended up getting through it. I had some help though. Let's be honest, okay? I'm not going to lie to you. I've never lied to you and say that I did 5 full days of solo parenting with no help. I did have help, which was tremendous. I don't think I would have gotten through it without any help because my daughter's 5 months old. My son's 2.5. So he's incredibly attached to me right now. We're good friends, even though you're not supposed to be friends with your kids. he's good friends with me. Let's put it that way. So when I'm like trying to get my daughter down for a nap, because she still takes 4 to 5 naps a day, depending on the time she gets up, I'm trying to like rock my beautiful daughter to sleep and like gently rub her face and do like voodoo curses on her to get her to fall asleep. And my son's like yanking on my leg. Daddy, I want to go to the pool. I want to go to the pool. There's no pool. It's, like a kiddie pool. So that part is difficult. My daughter ended up taking bottles. It started off the trip. This is how good. If you're ever worried about doing this, or you have this situation on your horizon, or you have to do solo parenting as a dad, and you're worried about bottle feeding a breastfed baby, my daughter on day 1 would barely take a bottle from anyone but me. On day 5, when we were leaving, my 16-year-old brother, who has he gets his hairstyles from like TikTok, he's that type, he was feeding her a bottle, no problem, and she drank the whole thing. So in a couple of days, everything went great. The first night, though, however, I will say, what is with a toddler's ability to have a very short nap and recharge like a Tesla at a power station? He had less than an hour nap in my stepmom's car on the way down. He didn't fall asleep until 11:48 p.m. Excuse me, tiny sir, what are you doing? He's never, I'm not kidding you, never gone to bed later than 9 p.m. He was up till almost midnight, and not like fussy fighting, just like walking around, wanting to do this, wanting to watch Blippi, which he watches now, which is a complete nightmare. I can't watch more than 9 seconds of a Blippi episode without losing my mind. Also, the funniest thing in the world is watching the people that Blippi interacts with at like the places he goes to. He'll interact with like a train conductor, and sometimes they're just totally not into it, and it's so funny to me to watch him be like, and do his little like dancing. And there's like a 65-year-old train conductor who's like 9 minutes away from retirement, just like, oh, hi, Blippi. That shit makes me laugh so hard. Anyways, yeah, because on vacation you have no routine. There's nothing going on. You're sort of like going with the flow, and the flow keeps just beating you in the face and kicking you in the teeth and the uterus or nuts. Everything's sharp. It's so insane. You try to go with the flow, and hopefully you get one over on the flow at some point on the trip. And I got about an hour to maybe 2 hours of pure relaxation per day. We go out on one of my uncle's boats, have a couple of drinks, listen to some music, and that was a great time. My son, for 2 of the 5 days, skipped his nap, which he's never done more than one day in a row. He just skipped the nap. The first day he skipped his nap, he went to bed at like 6:45 and slept until 9 the next day, which, again, he's never slept more than 10, 11 hours when he was a baby, maybe. Then the next day he skipped his nap and went to bed at like 10:30 p.m. Again, these toddlers are like Teslas at a supercharger. Like 9 minutes of just like kind of mild relaxation, and they're ready to go for like 6 more hours. It's absolutely wild. So I had a great time. My wife had a great time as well. Was sending her pictures, of course, constantly, and we both had a good time. I will probably not want to do that again for a while, if we're being honest with ourselves, because it was very difficult. I did enjoy the challenge, though. I got to bond with my daughter on a level that we hadn't even come close to yet, which was fantastic. I felt so close to her by the end of the trip. It was actually to the point that the first couple times she was going down for a nap or bedtime, when we got home, I had to put her down because my wife couldn't. So it was like, oh, how the turntables. Sweet Office reference there. But it was awesome. My son had a great time. My son got to bond with my siblings and stuff, and we had a blast. Oh, okay, totally forgot about the story. So my son he's a little bit of sensitive skin, if we're being honest. If you've ever looked at me, I have the complexion of like a brand new urinal. So I have delicate skin. My son, he got some of the beautiful olive Portuguese skin from my wife's side, but we still lather him up in sunscreen. And we have a sunscreen that's extremely heavy in zinc. Okay. So one day my cousins and siblings and stepmom are all floating out in the lake. My son was down for a nap. My uncle came back, picked me and my son up. I brought his sunscreen. We went out to that part of the lake to meet them. We're floating in the water. My son's on the boat with my stepmom, and my uncle pops up from his boat, and he had put my son's like 50% zinc sunscreen all over his face, like you would a normal amount of regular human sunscreen. It looked like he painted his face with like wall primer. It was so funny. He was trying to scrape it off, and he couldn't scrape it off. It was the goddamn funniest thing. He's in the water, like scraping his face using a Brillo pad. He grabbed like, I think, a turtle shell at one point and was trying to get the sunscreen off, and it didn't come off. It was so funny. So if you're an adult out there, don't use high octane zinc sunscreen from a toddler. It's not meant for you. So yeah, solo parenting was quite the adventure. On the way back, I'm going to be honest, I drove back, of course. I took both my kids back from Michigan to our home. I had my sister with me, who was a tremendous help. But I felt very proud of myself because I was worried. On the way down, my stepmom said that they had to like stop like 6 or 7 times. My daughter was super fussy. She wouldn't take a bottle. She needed to be rocked. She wasn't napping in the car. And I was like, oh God, this is going to be... Because again, I hate delays. I'm one of those dads. I'm road trip dad. I'm road trip Randy. When I'm on the road, I don't like delays unless I absolutely have to stop. So on the way back, we left the cottage, an hour and a half to the border, stopped right after the border, grabbed food. My son woke up from his nap. My daughter woke up from hers, tried to feed my daughter a bottle, didn't go. So we're like, all right, back on the road. My son got lunch. I got lunch. My sister got lunch. We're down the road, heated up a bottle in the bottle warmer while driving. Let's go. Very efficient. Fed her a bottle in the car because she was hungry by that point. She started to get a little fussy. 30 minutes later, stopped at another place, got out. Everybody went to the bathroom, changed my daughter, back in the car. A couple hours to home. My daughter starts getting fussy about an hour out from home. Another bottle in the car, prepped. We did a perfect 2-stop strategy. I felt like I could have run a Formula One racing team on that drive back. And that was it. It ended up being fantastic. My wife missed the kids terribly. And she was very happy to see them, and I was happy to see her because goddamn solo parenting is hard. So once again, shout out to anyone who does that for longer than an hour at a time. I will leave you with this. This is my number one tip for new dads if you're becoming a new dad or you plan on being a dad at some point in the future. This is my number one tip for new dads. Download the What to Expect app or whatever pregnancy tracking app your wife has. The reasoning is twofold. One, so you know what she's going through because it gives you updates about all of the baby things that her body's experiencing. It'll give you videos about what her body's actually going through. So it's a great way for you to actually kind of understand. Even though you're not feeling it, you can read about it, watch videos, be educated on what she's going through, which I find was very helpful when my wife was going through our first pregnancy with our son. And they give you fun little things of like what size the baby is. You're like, oh, this week the baby's the size of a Siberian kumquat. And you're like, well, that can't be a real fruit. That makes no sense. And then you argue about like what size that actually is and if it's a real thing. It's super fun. And then the other thing, and this is kind of a secretive thing that I'm a little bit ashamed to mention, but not really, is that you get, when you sign up for the app, you get involved in like these forums that are part of the What to Expect community, I guess. And let me tell you that the forums are if you think Facebook comment sections are crazy, the forums on a What to Expect or a baby pregnancy app are absolutely completely unhinged and out of this world. No joke, I saw one once that was the title of it was from a mom, I guess, who's expecting. What do I do? My husband won't stop jacking off in the garage. I don't think anyone's ever had that problem before. I didn't read the comments. I should have. And another one I read was like, and these happen all the time. It's like, hey, I'm 2.5 weeks postpartum and I'm pregnant again. Tee-hee, what do I do? And it's like, how is that even possible? Most women takes way longer than 6 weeks. They say it takes 6 weeks to recover. It's a lot longer in most cases. But you get to read some fantastic and absolutely absurd comment threads on that app. So dads, download the What to Expect app or whatever pregnancy app your wife is doing, because it'll help you be a better dad and a more understanding partner. I'm currently working on a postpartum project for helping dads understand the postpartum experience, depression and anxiety that moms go through. So stay tuned for more stuff on that. And I just want to say I'm sending love to any moms or dads who are going through a tough postpartum time right now, whether it's anxiety, depression, or anything in between. I hope you're getting the support you need. I hope you're getting the love you need. And for God's sakes, drink some goddamn water and charge your phone. Thank you so much. I love you guys.